Another month and another impressive turnaround for the U.S. equity market. It's Monday, December the 1st, and this is Markets with Megan. If you like this podcast, please subscribe. You can hit that alarm bell. Also, share it with your friends, family, or colleagues. Anybody that you think may be interested in the economic data that we see and what that means for the markets and especially investments. Today, we want to give you a review, though, of the month of November because it was not a quiet month by far. We did end the official government shutdown. That was the longest U.S. government shutdown on record, but it didn't stop the S&P 500 here in the U.S. from experiencing its first pullback, which is a decline of 5% or more. It saw its first pullback since really the Liberation Day decline that we saw. When you look at the tech-heavy NASDAQ as well as small-cap equities, they actually saw nearly a 10% decline for the month. The VIX index, which measures volatility in the U.S. equity market, that rose to the highest level also since Liberation, since April of this year. But as we finished out the month, the last couple of weeks, that market kept going, and we got the S&P 500 to end the month in actually positive territory. So a really big turnaround for U.S. equities. The reason behind that was that there was the expectation that with the economic data that was slowly starting to be released, it would give the Fed the flexibility to cut interest rates at their December meeting. Now let's go into what we saw from an economic standpoint as well as from a market standpoint. From an economic standpoint, the consumer continues to be on shaky ground. When you look at the super core retail sales, that dropped for the first time in 5 months. And that we call super core because it excludes all those volatile items like building materials, gas, food, energy. We also saw consumer confidence, which we think can be a leading indicator for future spending. That fell to the lowest level since 2013 when you look at the component that measures the expectations that consumers have about the future of the economy. Inflation was mixed. The core producer prices were a bit better than expected. But when you look at services where we spend the majority of our money, you did see that index saw prices rise to a 3-year high. Now, jumping into the markets, the U.S. equity market was really the leader here, but it wasn't all technology. In fact, the NASDAQ and the Russell 1000 Growth Index actually declined for the month. It was broadened out. You saw value outperform growth at all 3 market cap levels. Also, when you look at the international markets, they actually lagged the U.S. You saw the MSCI All Country World Index, excluding the U.S., dropped for the first time in 4 months. The S&P outperformed its developed market counterparts, which is the MSCI EFA. That was for the 3rd consecutive month, and that's primarily due to weakness in Japan. And then globally, we saw weakness in the emerging markets. Fixed income here in the U.S., we saw bonds rally for the 4th consecutive month. Again, one hopes the Fed's going to cut interest rates and bring rates lower. But it was led by, if you look at the drop in yields in the short term. So the 2-year fell to the lowest level since 2022. Also, investors favored the quality of Treasury bonds over things like high yield and emerging market bonds. From a commodity perspective, we did see the broad commodity index rally for the 4th consecutive month, but it was primarily due to precious metals. Now, gold, similar to some of the equity markets, saw a pretty big drop to start the month. We saw gold drop about 10% during the month, but it did rally back along with the risk assets to end the month with its 4th positive monthly gain. And then on the energy front, we saw that natural gas outweighed that that decline in oil prices, and the Bloomberg Energy Index actually ended the month positive for the 2nd consecutive month. That's all we have for what we saw in the month of November. We'll be back to give you some more details as the month of December goes out and we round out this year. Thank you. And if you want a history of our podcast, go to marketswithmegan.fm.